Today we have quite a packed agenda, as always, really. We have a great lightning talk from Robson. We're going to go through best practices. We're going to do a group discussion similar to last time. We had a lot of great feedback, discussions. So we want to do that again, really around best practices for analysis. And then we're going to share a few general tips from our side, and then we're going to jump into a roadmap update. We're going to go into a little bit more detail, give you some insight, a few sneak peeks as to what we're working on. And then we're going to do a demo of some of the geo functionality for Collect. So to kick us off, we have a lightning talk by Robson. I already saw a little insight into this talk, so I'm very excited to hear what he's going to share about working in the agricultural space, some of his insights around traceability assessments, his process for analysis using pyODK and other Python libraries, and how all of that is pulled together and shared in dashboards for community members. So I'm going to just switch my screen. I'm going to share the slides for Robson. So let me just switch here. Okay. Nice to see everybody. Okay, there we are.
Hello,
Can everyone
everybody.
see that all right?
My name is Robson, and I'm been to IT for 30 years almost now. And I have a company here in Brazil that provides consultancy now, doing data collection and analytics. And the project I'm about to show you in the next slide, please, is about a digitalization project for a cooperative that produces açai pulp from fruits collected by the producers, their members. It's in the state of Pará, Amapá, in the top north of Brazil. It's on the map, but I'm a bit nervous here. And they live in communities, as you can see on the maps, and they have the river as the main transportation way for them, and it's roughly in the middle of the forest. But this project has two key aspects. One is the social and environmental assessment tool. They make assessments to each producer area. And the other one is the traceability system that we build to trace the açaí to the final product. So next one, please, Ali. This project is a partnership between Instituto Terroir, a Brazilian NGO, and my company, RFV Consult, sponsored by Fundo JBS Amazônia. We build the application or system or data product in an incremental way. This is the design principle we used, and we think it's really important in this kind of projects. We created MVPs, so there were small pieces, and we're adding features to that small products over time. So this is a thing that grown their sense of ownership and participation, and they really engage into the process, especially the youngers. So they could play a important part in this project. So the next one, the high level workflow, so you can understand. The assessment tool is basically run by 3 people. They have 2 forestry technicians that pays visits to each producer areas, and they evaluate social and environmental aspects in these assessments. And the traceability is run by a bigger staff. So the producers collect the fruits, they put the fruits into bags. We use the ties to identify, and there are barcodes on every tie. So they lock the bags, and when they process the fruits to blending and to create the final product, the pulp, at the factory, they scan these QR codes. So this is how the traceability is done over time. So next one, please. So we're interested in forms. So ODK forms. The assessment form is a big one. We start that form by identifying the producers with select one questions. So we have the producer list as a CSV attached to the form. But this is definitely a point where we are starting to use entities as soon as possible to improve control of this producers list. The form is composed mainly of single or multiple choice questions, some with media, and this is something that can make things easier. And we use validation a lot to ensure data quality. So all the form has validations, and we use that a lot. We provide warnings to the field technicians when some specific answers are given by the producers regarding some critical situations. We have notes, and we display those notes to the technician so they can talk straight away to the producer in a critical condition. But one very important thing is that we don't create any risk evaluation or do any complex calculations in ODK. We have a tool in Python that we developed that we connect, and we'll do all that analysis later on. Okay. Traceability is divided into 4 different forms, but we combine the data into the Python code using the barcodes, using producer names and IDs, and the batch number in the production. So we combine all the data into Python code later on. And how they visualize the data. They visualize data into a website. We built a website. So our Python code is creating plots, creating spreadsheets, creating indicators, and we show all that into a website that we built. It's a static website. Okay, we process all the information every 30 minutes, and that's the way it's getting updated all the time. So the next one, please, Ali. So what's behind the scenes? We have the ODK collect and ODK central, which everybody knows. We also extract every 30 minutes information from central and publish that information on the website. So I can be a little more specific. The next slide. Which pandas modules? Oh, sorry. Which Python models? Pandas definitely play a huge role here. So which Python models do we use? We start by using pyODK. So pyODK extracts everything from central, and we process everything in pandas, which is basically a way to create tables and manipulate data in Python. We use matplotlib and seaborn to create the plots, to create the visuals. And we have this module XLSX writer that is extremely nice to work with Excel spreadsheets. So we can generate really nice spreadsheets. It's almost the same way that Jan has shown with the Word documents. It's an integration, so you can start from Python code and write down everything into Excel, so people can use the Excel spreadsheets that they are used to. They are very familiar with that. So the next one, please. Why we made those decisions? We choose to not have dynamic dashboards because we had to keep it simple. We have to keep them, to give them the right information the way they want to see. So it's not a dynamic dashboard so they can play with the data. They have the plots that indicates what they want to see to take decisions. They also don't have good internet access everywhere. So they go to the website, they download spreadsheets, and they get over to daily activities using the spreadsheets, basically. And sometimes they want to print out the graphics to give feedback to the producers or something like that. So it's it's done, it's there. So they can just print out and use it. And it's also the cheapest option because you don't pay any license to anyone like Power BI, Tableau, or any other tool. But there are also Superset and other open source tools to dynamic dashboards also. And the next one, please. So lessons learned. Digitalization is about moving from manual process to digital ones, and it's a huge cultural shift. So it's important to create MVPs. It's important to implement the things piece by piece. You know? The more users like one piece or feature, the easiest to get the next one done. So it's about engagement. It's important to do that way. And it's important not to look at ODK and Central and also Collect as the only tool to use. Sometimes it's better to connect another tool, which is better for data analysis or something like that, than to try to create within the forms all the logic or trying to do things that are really complicated, because that takes a lot of time, and over time the maintenance will be even harder to keep. So the next one. Well, we strongly believe that it's crucial to design this kind of instance, this data products end to end. So there's this circle. It starts from collecting data and then generating information, getting insights, making decisions, taking actions, getting more data. So it's a circle. And we have to think about the very important stage, which is taking decisions. So what is the information needed to take decisions? And we're building systems to support that. Okay. So next one. We saw this opportunity for connecting systems into the Rudo Camper's talk 2 months ago, I think. He was connecting the satellite imaging processing and finding alerts on the satellite imaging processing, and then going to the field, and then taking data, like taking pictures, recording videos, audio, interviewing people, filling assessment forms. So ODK can be the ground tool for data collection and can be integrated into these other systems that brings information into other levels. Okay. Please, the next one. And so, last but not least, I'm definitely feel that I'm standing in the shoulders of the giants, as mentioned, because ODK plays such a crucial role into all that I've developed. And this thank you has definitely at least 2 different meanings. Thank you all for this opportunity and for talking here, your attention, but also thank you guys, because this work is, a game changer for everything, and ODK is a fantastic tool. Wow, that's it.
Thank you.
It was really fast. Sorry. So we have a lot
that's
of time, so
wonderful.
you
More
can.
time for questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen and then we can see everybody here. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, let me just double check the chat here. Sharing my screen. Okay, no questions. Oh, from Tyler. How many enumerators are there in the field?
Oh, for the assessment tool is 2 people only, because they are 150 producers, and it's only once a year they have to assess the area, so it's really low. And in the traceability, there are 8 people. But they're not exactly enumerators, because this is the way the digital tool is something that they use on a daily basis in their job. So some people are working at the factory and they're using ODK to register what's going there. Some people are collecting fruits on the communities from the producers, so they use the tool to do that. They're not only data collectors, they're doing their job and using ODK as a tool.
Rudo, if you want to come off mute, you can also share your question, or I could read it out. What do you prefer?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone at the moment.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, and so, yeah, Robson, really, really awesome work, really inspiring. And I love the thinking behind, instead of going for like a dynamic type dashboard, which is what we go for, going for something static that updates very frequently in order to meet the needs of kind of low resource, like connectivity environments. So I think that's really cool and awesome, and I'd love to know more about it. And selfishly, I wanted to ask if the code is open source so we can have a look at it and maybe learn a few things from it. But yeah, it's a really cool workflow. So thank you so much for sharing that. Awesome work.
Oh, thank you.
Stuart, you have a question?
Oh, I'll turn my video on as well. Yeah, great talk. Really interesting. I was just wondering, you've linked everything together with barcodes and sort of farm IDs and things like that, which is great and the best way to do it. So how much time do you now have to spend on data cleaning, or is there any data cleaning at all? Is it pretty much all sorted, or? Yeah.
No, there's a lot of data cleaning because
Fair enough.
in the farms, they have two options. One is to scan the barcodes, but sometimes that doesn't work. So they have a text field to type in. So we have some specific spreadsheets to deal with that. So, hey, man, these numbers are duplicated. Oh, this number has already been used. So probably entities will play a crucial role on this too, because we can automate this kind of things, conflict resolution from those numbers. But yeah, it's also a working process, and we have many spreadsheets to deal with that.
Yep. And my other question was, at the moment you're processing your data every 30 minutes. What's the limitation for that? Is that just an arbitrary number that you've picked? Or because, you know, for my data, I process it every 24 hours because that's suitable for the users. What's your reasoning behind the 30 minutes?
Sometimes they went into Central to correct some barcodes or some information, and they want to have the feedback prior than the next day. This is the main reason why we are processing every 30 minutes. So they correct everything on the Central, and they can see the results 30 minutes later.
Cool, brilliant.
That's it.
Yeah, do you have a question?
I do. Hobson, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really great. I was really amazed to see that, you know, some of the learnings from Rudo has sort of has migrated its way into your work. That's really gratifying. I did have a question about the dynamic or the lack of dynamic dashboards. I think it's like a really great idea, a way to like incentivize users to like really think about what information they need. Have you had any pushback from the folks who are using those static dashboards? And maybe a follow-on question is like, how do you, like, what mechanism do you use to like hear their feedback and make those changes? So one is that, do they want to control it themselves? And if not, how do you sort of gather the feedback about like this chart is working or this chart is not working?
The NGO that is partners on the product, they are on the field. They are in touch with them on a daily basis. So they are talking to them constantly, and they give the feedback. And that the dynamic dashboard is not, so far is not haven't been any problems, because they don't want to see that. They just want to see the information. And some of the plots, they have things like total number of producers on one community and the number of producers that have already been assessed. So the plots are very specific to give them the information they need. So far, it's really positive. They don't need anything else, but they will probably talk to the technicians from the NGO on the field, and we'll start developing something.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen, I'm assuming your question was answered midway through Stuart's question.
It was. I was wondering if there were edits that happened on Central. So thank you for answering that. But yeah, I guess I do have sort of a related follow-on question, which is also, do the forms change as the work is ongoing? Or have you sort of kept them static? Okay, great.
Yeah, kept them static. And we also have 6-month interval between updates for the forms, because it's a process that there's kind of a quality system running. So every time you find something that has to be changed, it will be discussed in the next meeting, and which is the question. And so there's a date to update everything. There's a plan.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have any questions before we move
I have
on
a
to
question here. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
During those form updates, have you ever done an update that broke something else that you had to, it sounds like if you're doing updates normally every 6 months, but you break something, I would assume that you can't wait 6 months to fix it. So that would be my question.
Yeah, so far we haven't been in that situation. We test a lot things before publishing. Also because we can't miss any data, historical data. So sometimes we create a new form and we publish a new form just to not lose any data that kept behind. We are very committed to not having any problems on the field. We try to discover that on the testing. Thank you.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hobson. Thank you everyone for your questions. I think this is a nice segue into the next section. Ellen, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to share it for you? Or
You go ahead, please.
Yeah. Give me a sec.
So now we wanted to hear from some of the rest of you about your processes for using data, creating data products, and kind of get at some best practices for analysis or more broadly using data. And so we have a few prompts here for us to discuss. We want to hear a little bit about what your approach is, what tools you use. In that process, what works well for you? And is there anything that you've been thinking about changing? Anything that you wish worked a little bit differently? And with that, maybe you want to add a tip or two that you would share with your former self, things you wish you had known, things you would share to somebody who's just getting started, who has started thinking about their project plan and wants to know, okay, what's next with their data. So we're lucky to have heard from actually several people on this call through lightning talks, but maybe some of you who haven't shared your processes yet would like to get us started. Ellie, maybe you can put the questions in the in the chat, and then we could see the beautiful gallery view. I feel like it feels really cozy to have everybody kind of in the same space. Wonderful. Well, yeah, wants to share something. Then we'll go to Tyler.
Yeah, sure. I'll be very quick. I think for me, the most important thing that I've learned over the years is that you have to go end to end. So like when I build the form, I try it out and I build the whole dashboard, the Excel sheet connected to the OData stream, and I just like look at the data and make sure I can answer the questions that I need to answer. And every time I skip like going the end to end, I almost always get in trouble. And so that's like for me, the most important thing is like go end to end, fill out the form, see it on the server, put it in the dashboard, make sure I can answer the questions I want to answer. And that's like, I feel like 80% of the problems I run into is not going end to end. So that's my.
Tyler.
Yeah, so I'm not a programmer by background, so a lot of the data analysis, I've done data analysis. My background is in geology, but the coding part is not my forte. So I would say the things that I continually run into is knowing how, like the question earlier was, how often do you need your dashboard updated, right? And is that something that you absolutely need to be an automated process, or could you get by with doing something semi-automated or manually? Because for the purposes of what I'm doing right now, I can probably get away with it for a lot longer than I want to doing it manually, as opposed to putting forth the time to set something up automatically on the back end. So that's kind of the thing that I continue going back to is like, what is the time frame refresh for getting new data? What is the requirement there?
I think that's such a key question. What do you actually need with your data? And I think there's a lot of draw to, yeah, fancy dashboards and really dynamic things, but often actually there's just one person who looks at it at the end to build a report. So Tyler, you're absolutely right. There's so many scenarios where you can do your analysis at the end. You download the data once all of the edits have settled. You do it in Excel or a tool that you're familiar with. Absolutely. I think that's so important to keep that in mind, that that's always a valid process. Even if you are a programmer, sometimes you can actually, gain a lot of time by doing the simple way. So thank you, Tyler. That's a really good reminder. Jakub, do you want to share your process?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think for me, the number one is name it. I've run into a lot of errors with that. So the name column, not defined. Sometimes it could be too short, it could be too long. It's not descriptive enough for someone who isn't on the team when the thing was created. And working with state, most of the processes are supported by NGOs and grants. So you would want to make something sustainable. So that has been something, getting calls after a product has been closed for months. Okay, there's a column with X, Y, Z or AXN. What does it mean? And then unfortunately, there was a data dictionary. So it's a new task by the side trying to do that. So usually it's something we itemize. I think we do very well now. Just list out the questions, see the column, and then agree on a naming convention. And then even if we don't have a data dictionary, just a document that says this is how the naming came about. So that way you have sustainability. And also, something similar and end-to-end as you mentioned, understanding where the data goes from there. So when it goes to ODK Central, there are stakeholders. So it's the state. Maybe the Ministry of Health wants to plug into a different data set. And so they use Power BI and just plug in. Other stakeholders would want to use Python to do their analysis, then push to their own dashboard. And then maybe at national level, they want to push the data to DHIS. So just understand where the entire stream of flow works and see what works best. And also the final one is prioritizing the question types. And a recent example was this. So there was a bunch of data collection regarding supply chain management. And the last stakeholder just wanted to see the number of facilities who almost had stock out. So prioritizing those questions and ensuring that it's very easy to just push them as quickly as possible. So avoiding things like select multiple. So they're either a yes or no, just a question that's quickly able to analyze. Even if the system breaks, we can always download the Excel version, just do into manipulation. So those things really are important. Who the stakeholders are, naming it very well, and also just trying to see end-to-end system and who's going to plug into the system.
Oh, I love that. Those are some really, really good tips. Thank you, Jakub. Ellen and then Rudo. Go ahead, Ellen.
Hi, everybody. Well, just building on what others have already mentioned, but maybe going even one step further, agree with you that looking at things end to end is very important. And on my side, one thing I really try to have is really emphasizing reproducible analysis. So that means just ensuring that if I run the same workflow on the same data set, then I will have exactly the same result. And I'm using, so in terms of tools, that means really using GitHub. I very recently discovered that actually there is also a data control version that can be plugged in GitHub very easily. I had never tested it, but it works super smoothly. It just gives that first point is that it avoids data being stored in the GitHub repo to be sent on the online, but it gives a hash that can ensure that then you know exactly what was the state of the data you were using. And then in terms of tools, I'm a very big fan of Quarto, which works with Python, works with R, also with, I think, Julia, Observable, other languages, and I think it's much more powerful, in terms of for developing dashboards, well, actually rendering any kind of document. So it's almost the same cost now for me to produce a Word document or to produce a small website. And also going a bit into that direction, I really felt like all the tools that have been developed by POSIT, also obviously they're not they're not open source, they're not necessarily all free. There might be free versions, but for instance, if you have like POSIT Cloud, you can really deploy a website. Like you can just very render your analysis like in a HTML or website. So that would be a static website, same thing as Robson has mentioned. And then you can really publish it and share it with other people very easily. So I was very surprised how those workflows work very efficiently. Obviously, you need to know a bit how you have to plug things together, but it's honestly quite simple. And then maybe the last point is really like, I kind of agree with Robson also that I really like static representations in the end. Dashboards just sometimes have a technical cost for developing them. I think like you might just end up spending more time on understanding what interaction you might have with the data itself. So I think I would try on my side to really think on who is my audience, do those people really need to play with the data, and how likely are they going to do it? Because if it's for somebody to play with the dashboard once, and then they're systematically looking at the same view for the next 6 months or year, then I probably would prefer to prototype. I think it has a much lower cost to then prototype several types of representations and understand which ones is the most efficient. And then I'm not saying like dashboards probably or definitely have their value, but I think it's for specific type of users. So in general, static representations, I really like them. It just helps generating lots of things quickly and without that cost of interactivity that you have with dynamic dashboards.
Thank you, Hélène. Lots of things to look into. Yeah, Quarto has been on my list to explore more. So thanks for that reminder. I see that Stuart in the chat says that he also really recommends it. So that's great to hear. Rudo.
Yeah, awesome. Really, really insightful and informative discussion so far. Thanks, everybody. So one thing that we struggle with is what happens when you can't go end to end. So we work with a lot of organizations that have the capacity to make their own forms, and they make them, but they're not always with the best kind of data practices in mind. There's a lot of kind of iteration where somebody decides to create a question, but then decides to group it and kind of change things around, but some submissions have already happened, right? And so what you end up with then is like orphaned columns, which then on the front end, regardless of whether you're using dynamic or static kind of outputs, you don't have to do some manual work, right, to kind of combine those. And so we have these data flows where we're kind of copying, kind of API data one-to-one into a data warehouse where the community can then use it for whatever they want. It could be a dashboard or it could be just an Excel download. But our users often don't even have that level of capacity really to be able to even do spreadsheets, and they would like to just see the outputs. But then we end up having to do a lot of kind of SQL type stuff to kind of combine things and say, oh, these and this and these columns are the same thing. So let's all show them, in the same kind of data column or whatever. And so, yeah, it's something that we struggle with, and I'm curious if others have encountered that too. When you, like as y'all was saying, like end-to-end is awesome, but what if you don't have that level of control? And then what are some techniques that people have used to kind of mitigate that, where you're not writing like a ton of custom kind of code to have to do that for each individual user? Are there easy workflows that people have found? And yeah.
Those are some big questions. And I think, Rudo, you're in a bit of a special situation because you work with folks who are collecting data to kind of have the data, but don't necessarily have questions up front. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yeah, it's quite a mix. I mean, some people definitely they know what they want to know already as the output, but they just don't have the best practices always, or they design it and say, hey, here's our form, can we ingest the data, but without really consulting us on the kind of best practices about form creation. And other times, it's a bit more exploratory, or they're collecting data about kind of cultural information or territory. and don't always have the answers right away of what they want, and might do quite a bit of iteration and kind of creating new versions of the form. And so that's how you end up with those kinds of dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyone have any reactions or suggestions for this? Stuart, a quick comment, and then looking at time, we're gonna move on to our next section.
It's probably not the most helpful thing, but I'm in a similar situation. You know, years of after running certain projects on certain forms, I've just got an R script with thousands of lines of code that correct for everything. So, yeah, my only advice is bite the bullet, write the code. Sorry.
That's been my experience as well. It becomes part of sort of the data processing pipeline. Is right here are all the modifications for all of the different schema versions. And maybe we could show some more examples of that, so that we have some kind of canonical references of here's what you might do if you used to have a group and you don't have a group anymore. You didn't have a group, now you have a group, things like that. So we have a little bit more structure around that. Thanks, everybody. Great discussion. I hope that you all have some tidbit that you can go follow up on. Ali, do you want to pop the slides back up? We just had a few things, I think, that have already been touched on, but really quickly, one of the things that I think is important to do if you can, if you're doing like a one-time data collection project, is watching the data as it comes in. I think sometimes people get in trouble because they've made a small form design mistake and they don't notice it until after the entire project is over. And so if you have some way of watching data, I mean, you can just have central and refresh central and have a few key columns that you're looking at. You could build something in Excel that has some automated checks for quality or for things that you really expect. Whatever it is, highly recommend just watching that data right at the beginning. Remember to filter out rejected submissions. This is something that we sometimes see made as a mistake. If you're using the rejection tools in Central, make sure that you're actually following up on that in your data product. Same thing with edits. You want to make sure that you're actually including them in your analysis, that you're doing your download after your edits, if you have that kind of process. Having a clear upfront plan for any more complex types that you might include, rank, media, repeats. People collect pictures, but they don't have a plan for what they're going to do with them. You really want to think about, are you actually going to be able to use all of that media? Aim for transparency and reproducibility. Ellen talked about this. You want to make sure that somebody else who gets your data set could get to the same results, right? They're not just your special results that only you can get. And then this is subjective, but one recommendation is pick one tool and get to know it well. I think it's very tempting to say, oh yes, I'm going to check out Quarto, I'm going to check out Excel, I'm going to do Power BI and, learn a little bit of each, but then not have enough depth to be able to do all the things that you want to do within one tool. So recommendation would be, all of the tools are great, pick one and get to know it in a little bit of depth. With that, let's turn it over to some more ODK specific things. We're going to show you a little bit on what's going on with our roadmap.
So I'll take over here, and Ali, you can just keep driving the slides. We can go to that next slide. So everybody knows where our roadmap is. The thing I want to highlight in this section is we have a lot of things going on in the now section. Now it says 12 on the screenshot. I checked last night and it's like 16. So we have a ton of stuff going on now. The good news is that Collect 2024.2 is in regression testing. And so once I'm hoping like in the next week or two that will ship. And once that ships, that will clear out a lot of stuff from the now to done. But again, please do check out the roadmap to give you a good sense of what's we're working on now, what's coming next, and what's coming later. I want to move on to our web forms, which is a project that we announced, it feels like just a couple of months ago. We've made incredible progress. Right now, we're working on just getting the core functionality in place, things like repeat count, constraint, and required messages. We want to make sure that it's entirely consistent with Collect. We know people have had that problem with Enketo in the past. So Trevor and Sadik have been actually porting over all the collect tests to make sure that the behaviors are exactly the same. Integration with Central is ongoing as well. And that beautiful little video that you're seeing there is that last point, making the web forms mobile, tablet, and desktop friendly. So now you can drag your window and resize it all very sensibly. This is going to be great for folks with bigger or smaller devices. What's coming up next? We're going to support more question types, obviously. It turns out ODK has a lot of question types. And so getting them all into Ghetto is an ongoing thing. I think there's like 70 or something like that. It's crazy. So we're working on that right now. And then the last thing is maybe the most important is that we're going to ship a public service, kind of like the XLS form page that people use to preview their forms, a web first service where you can upload your XLS form and see how it looks like and works in web forms. So that'll be a public service. And for those who are using Central, we'll also have a mode in Central where you can just try out your web forms and importantly, offer feedback on if it's working for you or not. Next slide, please. Speaking of Central, I think this Central's release has a lot of infrastructure changes, underlying infrastructure changes that shouldn't affect too many people. We're working on, putting the infrastructure in place also for offline entities and lots of quality of life, UI, UX sort of experiences, improvements there. Coming up next is improvements in the navigation and a redesign around drafts so you can get a better sense of where you are in sort of the form design and iteration process. So all that stuff is coming. I think we showed you some screenshots of that last call. And then submission deletion is coming. I know it feels like it should have been there from day one, but we have a lot of other stuff. And so submission deletion is coming, I think, both via API and via UI. So that's coming in the coming release of Central. Stuart, I appreciate the love. Yes, a sneak peek. We always want to give you guys a taste of what's coming. Here is a prototype of some of the user management work that we're doing. This one shows you that you can sort of paste in a spreadsheet of all the users you want to create, and Central will create that for you. So there's going to be better tools for organizing, managing, perhaps grouping users, making it easier for folks to identify people within the system. So we think we're going to make good progress for you folks on form assignment that is easier for both individuals and groups. So for example, we can have a group of vaccinators who have access to a certain set of forms, and just a cleaner and clearer QR code experience. So if you or someone on your team is sort of responsible for managing users, user management, and you're interested in giving us feedback on these prototypes, please reach out to Ali and set up a time to talk so we can make sure that we're including all the things that you need as part of your work. Let's jump into the collect beta. We have a beta out here with like a million features. Okay, eight new things. The offline entities prototype is out. I hope you've had a chance to try it. It's pretty mind-blowing. Prompt for recovering work. It's kind of like the same thing that you see in Word and Power BI, where you can auto-recover things. The styling, I know Stuart's been enjoying the map styling. Auto sending and retrying, the mass appearance, read-only buttons. There's like a lot of stuff in there. So please, if you haven't tried the beta, please do try it now. Next slide, please. And for those who have tried the beta, shout outs. Mathieu, CY, Dan have all tried the beta and they've loved it, and they get extra love on the call for trying it. So if you haven't had time to try the beta, please do it. Andrew, thanks as always for your feedback there. For those who haven't tried the beta, I thought I would do something high risk and hopefully fun, and just show you some of the offline tiles work that we have going in Collect right now. So I'm going to share my screen, or rather try to connect to my phone screen. Ooh, fancy. Can I see a thumbs up? Can everybody see the screen? All right, so this is my project space. I'm going to show you some of the offline tiles work that Ali, Jacobs, Callum, and the rest of the team have been working on. And let's, this is the new beta if you haven't tried it. So I'm going to fill out a form. It's called Mapper. I'm going to call it, I don't know, San Diego downtown or something. And I need to select a place. So here I am in San Diego downtown. I'm using a base layer called Cardo, which is like really bland. And now I want to add an offline layer. Why would I want to add an offline layer? Well, sometimes if you're offline, you want to have some context. You want to have some for data collectors to be able to do their navigation and whatnot. So I can actually hit the tiles layer here and add some layers. These layers can be stored anywhere. So in the old days, you'd have to like physically touch a device and push them using ADB. But now we have lots of flexible ways. So you can share layers via WhatsApp. You can go device to device, like use Wi-Fi direct. And this example, I'm going to use Google Drive. So you can put your MB tiles in Google Drive. This is my Google Drive here. And Google Drive is nice because once you import them, it doesn't require an extra download step. So I'm going to select these extra tiles. And then Collect is going to go out and grab those tiles from Google Drive and then import them. These tiles are pretty heavy. I think, let's see if I have the file sizes here. I think it's like a couple of 100 megs. So, and I pulled these tiles from, oh, there they are. They've been downloaded. I pulled these tiles from, I just use QGIS to download these MB tiles. So these are different areas. You can have these tiles, these layers available to all projects or just the current project. I'll do all projects. And then they're here available for view. So for example, if I select the Balboa Park tile, Balboa Park is this place here. As I zoom in, you see that change? That's the new tile coming into play. And so it's zooming in at this level because that's the level where I've downloaded the tiles. But you can see that you can add whatever layers you want. And these will all work offline and give you context as you're collecting your data. You can switch to other areas. So for example, if I pretended I was near the marine reserve, which is like over here somewhere, and I zoom in, that tile will then show up. So you can load whatever tiles that you want. You don't have to go into settings. Any question that has a location, you can click that layers button, select which layers you want, download them and make them available to all your projects or just a single project. We also have some data management in here. So if you're done with the Balboa Park layer and you want to save space, your data collectors can go ahead and delete that layer. And again, it's deleting it off your device. It's not deleting it off the Google Drive or wherever you shared it. Okay. So yes, offline tiles are now a lot easier to get into ODK Collect. You can download them directly from the question. It works in any location question. So if you haven't had a chance to try it, please do give it a try and give us feedback on that feature. I see lots of things in the chat. I have not paid attention because I've been busy demoing. So Ali, can we switch? I'm going to stop sharing here. Can you switch the slides? Okay. And maybe Alan can answer the questions whilst I move on here. So what's coming in Collect besides all the amazing things I showed you in the beta? There's even more. So after this release that's in beta goes out, we're working on another release that's 224.3. And that's going to have the full performance offline entity. So the previous release that's coming out in a couple of days or a couple of weeks really is limited to like 50,000 entities. The release coming after that in the fall is going to be a lot more performant and it's going to have improved widgets and more UI polish. The screenshot that you're looking at is our new counter widget. So like, for example, if you're counting trees or pieces of trash, instead of just entering the number, you can hit +1 and minus to do that. We're also going to be improving the media view in the form hierarchy, support submission editing on the device. I think this is the one we talked about 2 or 3 insider calls ago, where you can, if a submission is still on the device and has been sent, you can edit and send in a new update. So that's coming as well in 2024.3. So a ton of stuff in the pipeline. Next steps. What do we have coming up next? There's no call in August. August is kind of a holiday month for folks, so we're not having a call there. The next meeting will be September 11th, and we will put out an announcement in the insiders category, as always. So you will have that. We just shipped a new tutorial last night. We have a tutorial called Mapping Households in Power BI. So this is step-by-step for those who haven't used Power BI or aren't familiar with using it for the OData feed, this is step-by-step guidance of a form that has some locations in it, connecting Power BI to that form, downloading those submissions and dropping them on a map. So that's available. We'll be sharing that on social media and on the forum as well. So do check out that tutorial. And shout out to Elen for writing Thalie Elen, not Elen. Oh my gosh, so confusing. So I shout out to Elen for writing that great tutorial on using the OData feed with Excel. That's linked also in that tutorial. So there's a lot of resources for folks who want to use Power BI or Excel and Connect to Central. Coming soon. What is coming soon? A ton more research on user management. You got a sneak peek of that a few slides back with the creation of users via CSV. But Ali's going to be reaching out to folks to learn more about their user management needs. We've got a bunch of little prototypes that we want you to see and try. And so that's coming in the pipeline. The next thing that's coming is docs. We talked about form fires last call. We're synthesizing some of those conversations and we'll be putting out some documentation that's available for the whole community. And the same with the calls that we just had. So all the thoughts that you shared about Warto and analysis and going end to end. And what if you can't go end to end? We're going to synthesize all those conversations, put it into some best practice and documentation, publish that in our docs website and have that out to the community soon. I can't make any time promises because then we'll get trapped and yeah. So it's coming soon. As soon as we can do it, it's coming. We have about 5 minutes left. So I want to pause and open the floor for questions in the next 5 minutes about anything that we've talked about so far in the Insiders Call. You can raise your hand, you can drop it in the chat. The chat here. Tyler.
Can you just quickly explain what the view media and hierarchy is referring to? I'm not sure what that's talking about.
Okay. Ali.
Yeah, I could share. So I'm like debating if I should bring up Figma. Maybe not. Maybe we'll share afterwards. But we want to display different types of media images, eventually maps in the hierarchy view. We're calling it the summary. So perhaps that's where we're getting a little bit confusing, but it's going to summarize all the questions within your form and having that media displayed there as well. So that it's easier to check. Did you capture that correctly or not? I can actually maybe as we're
Figment.
Okay, give me a sec. Because it's easier
The
just to show.
hierarchy or summary view, sometimes it's also called the jump view. It's
True,
you know,
also
when
that.
you're filling out a form, there's that little northeast arrow that you can click and it gives you like the table of contents of your form questions and the answers. Yeah, Ali will show you. So that's what we're talking about. If you have a
Yeah, so
suggestion for a better name that we should standardize on, let us know. But we're going with summary view now.
yeah, exactly. So here's some of the behind the scenes as what we're working on. So for like recording, for files, for barcodes, just adding the icon there, eventually potentially showing a map, but just making it a little bit easier to see the different media that you've attached.
Can you zoom in on the bird a little bit so we can see? Go up.
Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah. So on the left-hand side is just like the standard collection screen. The next screen is, the summary view, the jump view, the hierarchy view. And you can see like, we put all the media in line. You can see like the barcode stuff, just like some nicer stuff. So you can see better summaries of your data. So
And we'll incrementally get to this with the sound wave, all of these things. Is something we're working towards. So we'll incrementally get there. Might look something more like this. Also with the map. So yeah, another little sneak peek as to what's to come.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions? We have a couple more minutes. About anything, really.
I have a question here. The view that Ali just showed, that's like when you after you have filled in the form, and then you have the summary like at the end. So in the case of videos and audio, it's not much of a thing. But if you have images and tags and barcodes, would that be an option to print that out on the device? Because right now we have there is an option to create a PDF that you have to make it by hand using HTML. But if the view is already there, would it be something to consider that to print that out? Is that something that's would be considered?
It's great feedback. Yeah, that's helpful feedback that you'd want to print it out. I'm curious, are there others that would find that helpful or useful?
For a specific use case, imagine you are doing field work and you even have someone that for example the person signed out you as the surveyor, and the person that has been surveyed, they can sign as to show that okay, that was done on the field, and maybe you wanna just have the PDF to send them while you have the data also in Sandrin, but just for them, like, okay, you have this copy of the data from the PD that you have there from the device itself. So in some cases, there's an expression, if you only have a hammer, everything becomes a nail. So in this case, a lot of people, if they are on the field, they have the device and they say, okay, if I can have the PDF of the device, but not sending it to the server, create the PDF on the server and then send via mail. If you have the possibility to do it on the device itself, it would be a plus.
I think that's great feedback. And so we'll take that feedback. Nelson, thank you for sharing. We'll take that feedback along with all the great feedback and comments that we've gotten on this call. I think Ellie and I and Alen have like a meeting. We'll synthesize all that, share what we can share out as resources for the community. The ones that we can't share out, we'll put it into our roadmap and try to make some decisions about when some of these features will ship. So I think there's a lot of stuff coming. And so thank you so much for your feedback and your attention. Robson, thank you for your amazing talk. I really appreciate it. They say that you said that you stand on the shoulders of giants. That can sometimes cause back pain, but in your case, no back pain whatsoever when you stood on our shoulders. Really, some people stand and it's like, oh, I'm really hurting here, but we really appreciate. There's no back pain whatsoever. And so thanks everybody for being insiders. And we will see you on September 11th. Join the beta, keep collecting great data, and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.